Welcome back, welcome in, welcome all to another episode of the Like That podcast. As always, myself, Nico. I never say my own name, but it's Nico, Nick, Brooklyn, and guys. I don't know. There should be a red carpet for us this week. I mean, holy hell! What a week. I get the week. I was about to say our episode, but if you haven't listened to episode 11, you very much should because the boys had a day.
Definitely. It was for me anyways, it was a much needed comeback week. Shout out Houston, first of all. Finally. The pick of the week loss streak is finally over. It's broken. Rolling with my dogs.
How do you
That
feel?
defense looked dominant last week. I feel great. I feel relieved. No bag this week. It's nice. It's nice. It's nice being back on the board, back in the W column. But they look good last week. I'm going to talk about them later on in this episode. But it was a good week last week.
Yeah, going 10 for 16 on spread picks is as cool as its own right. And aside from the one unpopular opinion I might have had, that seemed to honestly get overshadowed for everything that I did get right last week.
You have to explain
Was
what you're talking about too. Just to those that
yeah,
aren't on TikTok.
as if you're not on TikTok. Yeah, we said Bo Nix isn't a good quarterback to lead a drive prior to the Green Bay game. Wasn't entirely impressed by his 31 completions for 200 yards, and not only before the game did I start to hear about that from the entire state of Colorado, but during, after the game, oh baby, yeah, no, I was dead wrong there, and I eat my words 100% there, going at Bo Nix and saying that he's not a quarterback who can lead a team like that. I'll go back on my statement. He definitely proved me wrong there, and I know Nico that you're kind of still in a anti Bo Nix world over there, and frankly, I mean, not apologizing to like the drunk dads on TikTok who decided to try to get smart with me, or those kids in high school who were strongly opinionated. But yeah, was wrong there. That's all it is. And do you think Stephen A. Smith got famous off of going with the flow of the public?
Oh, Nix is on crack. No.
I am curious though, it's like to really hear your argument against him. I know like you were kind of the original OG Bo Nix hater, and I kind of jumped on that train thinking he wasn't that efficient. But after that week, tough.
Even a broken clock is right twice. I don't want to. He played a great game against Green Bay. Is probably his best game of his professional career. Over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, a game-winning drive at home. But still against the 1 seed or the 2 seed in the NFC at the time. But I'm not entirely sold. The biggest problems for me has just been his like decision making in the pocket, and it worked well last week. He had the tools, but it's kind of the same thing when people talk about Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, where when you're drafted as an older quarterback, you're supposed to already have some type of competence coming in. It shouldn't be like the Cam Ward in Tennessee situation, where I know that coming into the league, rookie shouldn't be expected to take a team to the playoffs necessarily, but being an older, more experienced quarterback, you should have a little bit more game sense. And I don't think Bo Nix is that guy. I don't think he has a very high ceiling, and that's why I'm not very high on the Broncos going into the playoffs. But who knows what that says for my pick later this episode.
I'm
Uh,
throwing that on TikTok like right now.
and then yeah, I can get the rest of the
Love
heat.
it.
But yeah, to elaborate still a little bit more on last week, Brooklyn and myself both went 10 for 16. Nick right behind us at 9 for 16. Picks of the week, yeah, Green Bay didn't necessarily go Brooklyn's way, but Houston went incredibly well for Nick. And my Eagles pick, I mean, that just put a smile on my face, man. Especially after I said I don't think the Raiders score over 10. I was being generous.
Dude, that was ugly. That was really bad. But I actually rode with you on that team total under at 10.5, and that was a good read. That was a good read. And honestly, might look good again this week, but we'll get into that later.
And players to watch off of last week's episode, we had over
Oh man.
20
Yeah, you want to
touchdowns
you want to tell me
predicted.
that this is a guy that I'm a guy who doesn't know ball or that I don't do my research. Yeah, take a back seat here.
I mean, dude, I shouted out Kyle Pitts on Thursday night. Brooklyn, of course, talking about T-Law and having a great performance through the air. I mean, 6 total touchdowns, 5 through the air, 1 on the ground. We had in the Chicago game, we picked the three of us both selected DeAndre Swift and DJ Moore. They combined for 4 touchdowns, So there was a lot of victory lapping that can be done, and I almost left without saying that the like that lay hit last week. All three props cashed.
With
What more
ease,
could you want?
with complete ease. Like that, the T-Law prop cash by the third quarter, and everything else in that was just light work there.
Yeah, Bijan finished with over
Yeah.
80. It was
Yeah,
great.
DeAndre Swift, he got his carries. That was the only little concerning thing for me, was just that I didn't know if Monangai and Swift were gonna do the split like they normally do, but they were kind of feeding Swift that game because he was on fire. So
Some interesting numbers as well through 15 weeks of NFL football this year. 60% of tickets are 54.90 versus the spread this year, which is the worst record for public ever. So what does that tell you? It shows that the casinos are doing a hell of a job this year, making these lines, getting everybody one-sided. But to that same point, if you're up in the air about a team, realistically, you have a better shot of just, doing the opposite of, what all your homies are doing. So,
yeah,
little interesting tidbit there. Very interesting week of football we're jumping into. We have some crazy matchups, but also we've got some Saturday football. It's just such a random time of year, but we're right around the holiday season.
I love the holidays, man. And especially around in this NFL season, with how the playoff implication is playing out, with all these divisions being as close as they are, it's going to be really exciting these next 3 weeks.
Yeah,
And fantasy play this week too. Those, get into the heat of that too.
yeah. To all those that are
Yeah,
still in them.
yeah. I can't wait for fantasy playoffs next year.
We're on to 2026.
Yeah, remember the first week? The first week of my poop bowl, I had Kyle Pitts do absolutely nothing, and then week two, where it like doesn't matter, he just drops 45. Like, okay, that's cool.
That's
And then the
painful.
one week I need CD or Pickens to do something. The Vikings game happens. It was cool.
Well,
Yeah,
realistically,
DJ Moore was on my bench as well. Like,
you gotta listen. You gotta listen to yourself, man.
Yeah.
I think you talked about DJ Moore as a player to watch, and then you bench him.
but you would have played him over CD or George Pickens.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
That's a very, very fair point.
But let's get into week 16. Um, First matchup, we have Thursday Night Football, the
Game of the week.
game of the week, most definitely. Rams
Oh,
at
100%.
Seahawks, total of 44.5. These are the top two teams against the spread this year, both sitting at 10-4, and two incredibly strong defenses as well. You saw the Rams last week kind of take care of business against the Lions, and they cover. And meanwhile, congrats to Brooklyn here. I mean, Phillip Rivers doing the dirty work. It was funny. I was watching the game, and kind of, I guess you could say, poor decision on me to get up at this moment, but the Colts take the lead with less than a minute left, and I was like, oh my God, not only are the Seahawks not covering, but they're going to lose to Phillip Rivers. The kids back home are going crazy, watching their head coach, who's been out of the league for 5 years, lead the Colts to a win. And then the Seahawks in 30 seconds go down the field and kick their sixth field goal of the day to win the game. But again, props to Brooklyn for standing by Phillip Rivers on a 13.5 point spread.
I haven't my whole reasoning for that. I go, how crazy would it be for Philip Rivers to come back and possibly not get blown out in this game? I had no faith in that team, but I wanted to be like, let's take a chance. Yeah, that was incredible. Rivers also throwing for a touchdown was just electric. Did you see his celebration? He did like the onk, just like.
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, as he should. 44 years old, you're throwing a touchdown.
Classic.
Uh,
Oh my god.
but yeah,
It was moving.
looking at this game, back to Thursday night here. The top two teams, probably the two NFC favorites to come out for the Super Bowl. I went with the Rams here, which when we started, when I started doing my notes today, it was the Rams at -1.5. Then it goes to 2.5, and now it's entirely flipped to Seattle -1.5. I don't know if that has something to do with the turbulence of the Rams. Quite literally, their planes are getting a little delayed, so this isn't the first time we've seen them travel on short notice. I know that when they went for the Europe game this year against the Jags, they kind of left pretty last minute too, but I think that was a little bit more scheduled than this. But I still like the Rams here. I guess you could say in some point the pass rush for Indianapolis kind of, saw Sam Darnold seeing ghosts again necessarily. And I think the Rams D-line is what kind of separates these two teams. So, yeah, I'm taking the Rams on the road at -1.5. Or +1.5, excuse me. They're dogs.
Yeah, no, now they're dogs. I originally was on Los Angeles, but I flipped to Seattle I think the turbulence, especially with the short week, they just had a tough game against Detroit. Stafford, a few crucial interceptions in that game, but they still got the job done. No Devontae Adams this game. He's ruled as doubtful, the hamstring injury. He's dealing with that. I just think Seattle overall, when they faced last time, Sam Darnold had 4 interceptions, but they still only lost by 2. They still covered the spread in a pretty net game, and this game is for the division, basically. It's primetime game, Thursday Night Football. I think Seattle, I think it's going to be a coaching affair. I think Sam Darnold is going to make a difference from last week. I know Seattle didn't score any touchdowns, which is pretty crazy, especially how good this offense has been. I just think overall, though, Seattle overall just has more to play for. I think they've been the better team, not necessarily in the division, but just with the Rams going on a short notice and just with the whole turbulence thing and losing Devontae Adams, who's been their main red zone target. Not necessarily saying Puka's not going to be there, but just Matt Stafford has been going to him in the red zone. I just like Seattle.
Brooklyn speaking to the skies right now as he's muted.
Yeah.
Are we talking about like actual turbulence?
Their flights actually just got delayed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I heard the word turbulence thrown out loud. I was like, damn, we're getting like live updates from the plane.
They're
like,
playing. They were
Matt
supposed to
Stafford's like,
leave.
we're gonna
and
die.
then- No, they were supposed to leave, and then they had like equipment errors. So now they just left later, and then the rest of the team is meeting up with them later on. They're taking a
Gotcha.
737, supposedly.
Oh, those
That's
are
what Adam
notorious
Schefter said.
Those are notorious for being reliable. No, getting back to this game though. I still want to go with the Rams here, even with Devontae Adams out. That team's been led by Stafford, who has been just playing insane throughout the entirety of the year. Now I know Seattle, in their own respect, has been very lethal, and this is like one of the only games I think this week that's like a true toss up. But I'm leading here with Los Angeles just because of how dominant they have been the last couple of weeks, going against Detroit too, and still being able to come out of that game on top against one of the best offenses that is credited in this league. You know, both teams here have very respectable defenses, neck and neck, honestly. But that Rams front has made such a difference, and I don't really trust Darnold when it comes to prime time in really big scenarios. And we just saw that again against the Colts. Like that wasn't even a massive game. I mean, of course, every win counts, but I just don't trust Darnold over Stafford in a game like this.
Yeah, I'm so with you there. Nick, saying that he kind of likes comparing both sides, but MVP runner up right now, Matt Stafford has not gone a game without throwing a touchdown, and yeah, so I'm in agreement with Brooklyn here. Although Seattle 3-1 against the spread versus the division this year, my player to watch is also part of the Seahawks. I like Colby Parkinson this week. For the Seahawks. Oh my, what are we doing to start this episode already?
The Seahawks.
Against the Seahawks, thank you. Colby Parkinson, the Seattle versus the tight end this year has allowed on average 15 DFS points per week. That's 26th in the league. And if this goes anyway, like last week, I took a tight end to do well on Thursday Night Football, and he had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a Ram between those two. I think is gonna see that. I'm going with Puka though, because with Devontae Adams being out, just gonna draw more volume to everyone else. And with Puka, even if Puka does draw the heavy coverage that we're expecting, he is still, of course, that number one threat. So I still like Puka to have a pretty decent week and even more volume now with Adams being out.
I'm rolling with the Seahawks, so I'm taking a Seahawk. My player to watch is JSN. I wanted to go Shaheed here, especially since he's a new addition to this roster since last time they haven't played. So it adds a little bit of dynamic, especially to Darnold. But I got to go with the guy who was leading the league in receiving yards for most of the season. I know he's been quiet the last few weeks, but especially in a primetime game like this, big divisional game, I see Darnold targeting him a lot. So I think he's going to have another big day.
Now, jumping into Saturday late afternoon football. A little 5 o'clock start Eastern Standard Time here for a divisional matchup. We got the Eagles versus the Commanders. Commanders at home with a line of plus 6.5, total of 44.5. And looking at the matchup here, I I took the hot hand in Washington. I know that you took care of business against a Giants defense that isn't too spectacular, but this Eagles defense has had its struggles against mobile quarterbacks, allowing at least 24 points to quote mobile quarterbacks. I took that into consideration as those that are like taking actual like scramble attempts. And when you talk about the Eagles on the road this year, the last 3 games they're averaging under 17 points at home, and career 1-5 against the spread record for Jalen Hurts facing division rivals on the road. So Washington off a hot start. I think 6.5 is a large number, and I think they cover it.
Yeah, and with Nick and I going here with the Eagles, I'll give my piece, real quick. I think that the Eagles had that get right game last week, and this is just another one where they try to bring that momentum into this week. I don't think that Washington, like right now, is really that much of a crazy threat. I know that they just came off of a win against the Giants, of which that's not saying much. Terry McLaurin had a cool 50-yarder, I guess. Welcome back, finally. But I think Philly right now has just another chance to just say, hey, we're still a team that you should be very aware of. And as that offense, begins to just pick up some more steam defensively, they're looking decently healthy. And if Lane Johnson plays, Saquon's starting to catch some heat. I just don't think that the Washington defense is going to be able to keep up if Philly finally decides to have one of those lock-in offensive weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And to also kind of go off with Brooklyn's point of like we're a team to take notice of. This is a division clinching game. I'm pretty sure if they beat the Commanders, then they eliminate the Cowboys from even making the wild card. So they have a lot kind of on the stake here. They can clinch a playoff berth
Do they?
already if they do win the game. I don't know. I don't necessarily. Don't quote me on that, but
Do
I
you
mean,
think
if they win the division, then
do you think Dallas can
I
win this
just
division?
I do. I definitely think. Ooh, Dallas or Philly?
Dallas.
No,
So then who
no. I
wins
think
it?
Philly.
They don't got
No, I'm
nothing
saying
to worry about.
if Philly wins, they lock up the division. They eliminate Dallas.
They do eliminate
Philly is
Dallas.
playing. Philly is playing for a divisional title this game, so they have something to play for.
And
So
Yeah,
Washington's got Dan
Commanders
Quinn.
already done. Giants already done. The Cowboys, like that is the known thing right now. That if the Eagles win, the Cowboys game that they play essentially doesn't matter.
I faded this Washington team last week. Krosky Merritt, said "fuck you, Nick." But I don't think that happens 2 weeks in a row. I think this Philly team is too good. This Washington defense sucks. I mean, it's pretty easy to contain Jackson Dart. However, against Jalen Hurts and with this Philly offensive line, even if Lane Johnson doesn't play, I think it's still going to be pretty solid. That D line has been pretty beat up. Jalen Carter's still questionable. So, I mean, Mariota might have a pretty easy day running around,
Ta.
especially if they're that. What?
Ta.
Mariota,
Ta.
Oh,
ta.
sorry. Mariota.
Yeah, thank you.
However, Terry's been struggling. That whole receiving core in
Terry had a
Washington has been struggling.
50-yard touchdown last week.
Okay, you think he's
It's the
gonna do it
first
2
thing
weeks
he's
in a
done
row,
in
especially
so
against Philly?
long, dude.
I think
I
this
know. I can't.
Washington team has momentum.
I'm rolling with the team that's trying to win the division here.
The
So
bottom
going
bottom
Philly.
6 rushing defense, while Saquon's starting to catch fire now. Like no.
Jalen
Not to mention
Hurts.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts weeks 13 through 18 is 6-13-1 against the spread in his career. So something to swallow
Gonna
there.
change.
With even shitting on him in that perspective, I actually still have him as a player to watch this week.
Nice.
They say love hurts, and this week it does, because even though he's not going to cover the spread, Washington is in the bottom 5 in points allowed to the quarterback.
Well, Jalen Hurts is most definitely going to cover the spread, but also a big part of that game is going to be Saquon Barkley. I know that there has been, throughout the most couple of recent weeks, he was on and off, but he looks like he has found a stride here, coming up into this game, has scored a touchdown in both of those games and 122 yards against the Chargers, 78 against the Raiders. Granted, Raiders, nothing crazy in the Chargers game, like he had that big breakaway, but now he's going up against a team that around all the assets just isn't good. So I look for Saquon to be a guy that they continue to utilize as they did all last year, and he's going to be a very important piece that's going forward. So
I'm also leaning on Hurts, especially because he's my QB in the semis this week, leading me to the promised land. Especially against a bad defense. If they get into the red zone, tush push all day. That's what I'm hoping for, anyways. But I like Hurts in this matchup.
Our Saturday night football matchup, another great matchup this week. Divisional matchup, rematch of 2 weeks ago. We have the Packers now on the road facing the Bears. As of, again, a couple hours earlier, the Packers were favored. That line is now flipped to Chicago at -1.5, which, mind you, 2 weeks prior, the Packers did beat the Bears 28-21. We're seeing a total of 46.5. Big Micah Parsons injury last week, obviously, that's his season. And that's a big blow to this Packers defense, most definitely. But at the same time, you're talking about a Jordan Love that is, with the advanced stats, absolutely balling out. I mean, number one in EPA per drop back. You're talking about a top 2 EPA offense, and they're 4-0 versus the NFC North this season. However, 0-2 as favorites of 1.5 on the road, which when I wrote that in, they were favorites. So it doesn't matter, I guess, anymore. But they are in short rest, and the other interesting fact that I did find is that teams this season, after playing Denver, are 0-6 against the spread in the following game. Whereas you're talking about a Chicago team that has won 6 out of their last 7 matchups. 22 points on the road has been their average outside of that, if you exclude the Cincinnati game. But seeing the Parsons injury and how well this O-line has played for Chicago and being at home, I don't think they lose both to Green Bay. So I think with this small of a margin, I'm gonna take the favorites at home.
I'm rolling with you there. I had them 2 weeks ago as a pick of the week as dogs. I had nightmares about that Caleb Williams interception for at least 2 nights after that game. I don't think it happens. I agree with you. I don't think they drop to this team, and the Parsons injury does suck. You really do hate to see it, but Chicago putting up 30 plus against the Browns defense, run defense that's top 3 still, and DeAndre Swift had 2 rushing touchdowns. They looked really good. I mean, we've talked a lot about the Chicago team, and we said earlier that their record, we didn't necessarily think their record meant how good they were. They shut us up in the last few weeks. That Packers loss was tough, but it was still a close game. They were in that game, and then they go to win on their next 2. So I'm also liking Chicago here. I think Caleb Williams has a really good game. I think the whole offense has a good game, just based off of the rest and just what that whole defense has been dealing with injury wise too. It's been pretty rough.
Yeah, you can't ignore any part of what the Packers just not did, like, what just happened for the Packers last week. Their defense showed so many just mislapses in middle of the field plays, deep plays too, that they led up to Knicks, and now Parsons being out for the year, massive blow to that pass rush. And again, that Chicago line has been playing well for Caleb recently, and it's a huge statement for Chicago too. Now going against the Browns, who is known to have a very strong defense, and putting up 31 and not allowing any more than a field goal. So a lot of momentum going for the Bears. Just it has been going this way for them the entire season. It's been awesome to watch. Like, I don't mind getting proven wrong. Things like this, seeing Chicago do well is cool. Ben Johnson coming in there and really just making that team into something that I don't think anyone really expected this year. So I like the Bears to cover here, and I think that they will likely take this game against Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay defense in their last 3 has averaged over 26 points per game to their opponents. And yeah, another big loss to Micah Parsons. That kind of was the difference maker for me. But my player to watch, I'm taking Colston Loveland, tight end for Chicago. Injury report for Chicago this week showed that both Rome and I think it was Luther Burden that were both questionable. And I see this as another good opportunity for Loveland to get some targets, and he's been a yak monster. So as long as he gets the ball in his hands, he can kind of do the rest.
I'm rolling with the Packer. On the Packer side too, Jacobs, I mean, he's been questionable the last few weeks, but he's still suited up to play. Christian Watson's questionable. I'm rolling with Romeo Dobbs. I saw a clip on Twitter the other day that it was like Packers wide receiver twos like every week, and it was just like one of them going off. It's just like a team full of wide receiver twos, like the whole receiving core. I thought it was just funny because it's just like every one of them every other week goes off. I'm rolling with Romeo Dobbs. I'm just expecting him to catch it, probably a deep bomb at some point in this game. That's what he's done all season, but he's also been pretty productive fantasy-wise when a few other of the Packers receivers have been hurt.
Yeah, to be fully honest, I think there is a Packer this game that is going to have a decent week, and it could be Dobbs. And honestly, to me, for me, my player to watch, I took Jaden Reed, kind of waiting for him to have one of those games where it's like, this is the guy we saw last year, and I know still kind of fresh off injury, takes a while to come back from that. With Watson being eased back into it after, I mean, his injury looked a little bit worse when it actually happened, but I feel like they're not going to try to keep volume on him too heavy, just to, for the sake of Green Bay's playoff hopes. But to me, that leaves the door open for Jaden Reed, and we know Dobbs has been a guy to go to the entire season. But they got a guy last year. If you looked at his at Reed's stats last year, he was great for a large part of that season. So I think he's just waiting for his moment to kind of just have that get back game.
Moving forward, somebody needs to press that button.
Poop game of the week.
I'm having technical difficulties.
Well, do we
Here
need
we
to?
We got a pick of the week.
My mouse was being weird.
Oh, good. At least it was the right button this time. Let's take a look at Sunday now. Moving into the 1:00 slate, I'm highlighting a game that you could arguably say, "Oh, you're so biased," and I'm biased that the Bills are going to win this, and a spread that, to some, seems a little worrisome because it is in the double digits, but just barely. Buffalo versus Cleveland on the road against Cleveland. Spread right now is at -10.5. I took it at -10, so I'm kind of banking on that anyway to cover. Looking at the Browns first as a home team, that defense statistically wise is a top 3, top 4, top 5, very strong defensive unit, but at the same time, they just came off of a rough loss to Chicago. Shador couldn't really do anything in that game, and that defense just got blasted for 31 by a team that offensively I don't think is nearly as strong as the Bills. You don't have a quarterback like Josh Allen or the Bears, and seeing how the Bills were able to just cement that comeback against the Pats, it shows a lot to me. So, this Browns defense right now has let up 25 points at least through the last 3 weeks, and then when we should go to their offense wise, one of the worst, second to last worst team in EPA offensively, -0.2. So looking at their offense and how much production they're really going to do, I don't see them scoring more than maybe 16 points against a Bills defense that, yeah, you can call them fringy every single week. They'll do some things right on the run and then some things right in the pass, or they'll just let one side take over while doing the other one. But this is a Browns team to me that is just so uncompetitive. Defensively for them, for being such a strong unit, they have allowed 140 rushing yards for the last 3 games. And now we're highlighting James Cook, who's just been the same James Cook that we saw from the start of the season, even a bigger situation now as the Bills need to focus on winning games to keep that AFC, that divisional race alive. Going to the Bills side of things real quick here, they lead the NFL in EPA, 0.13, also leading the NFL in rushing yards per game and rushing touchdowns. So utilizing both Josh Allen's legs and James Cook's, and sometimes even Ray Davis gets some shout-outs in there as well. They average 29.4 points, third in points per game. Again, against the Browns, if you already put those numbers together, the Bills are going to cover that. To me, that defense is going to be the key to everything for them, just being able to shut down Shador as they held May to under 200 yards passing for the first time this season, and not even a single passing touchdown. So it shows that when you need them to kind of show up against a very high-quality team, they can. And now they just have to do the same thing, show up offensively, show up defensively, and I think the stats absolutely lead in favor for Buffalo this week.
I don't want to stop on the parade because the maths, but I do think there are some points to give Cleveland here, which is the reason that I actually did take Cleveland to cover at 10.5. Buffalo this season is 1-4 against the spread below 500 teams. That includes the 14-point spread against the Saints earlier this year. And the rushing defense, yeah, they had a pretty good game last week against Drake May through the air, but they're still allowing the 3rd most rushing yards per game, which for a Cleveland offense that is not dynamic through the air, the run game kind of has been their main part there. And home underdogs this year of 7+ are 11-6 this year against the spread. Since 2020, that's 27-16-1. And a Cleveland defense that's number 1 in passing yards allowed, 3rd in total yards allowed. This is still a pretty menacing group, and You mentioned Cleveland not getting 16 points at most. That'd be the over on their total line right now. Their team total right now set at 14.5. So
Even better.
I think being at home, 10.5 point spread, analytics on the year. I'm gonna put on my watch and trust some perfect timing.
I'm unfortunately putting my watch on also. Well, I already got my
No,
watch on.
don't say unfortunately. How are you gonna
Not even
convince?
unfortunately.
How are you gonna
No, no, no,
convince
no, no,
me
no.
to back
Yeah.
you up here?
No, 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 no. Not even unfortunately. I touched upon last week in the episode when I was rolling with New England how in their first matchup, Ramondre Stevenson was kind of the big difference maker with that rushing offense. And last week it was Travion Henderson. I think the same thing, especially with the powerhouse that Quinshon Judkins has been for that offense for the Browns. He's kind of been like, if the receiving game hasn't been going and if Fannin hasn't been open, it's just handoff, and it's been working. He's had a dominant rookie season. And, if they have a really good game passing through the air, as Nico touched upon, that run defense is still pretty lackluster, and that's kind of their big weakness, especially when they go up against powerhouse backs like this.
Which is all fair to put into account. But ultimately, I look at the performance of the Bills and how dominant they can be and how much they can just pour out on you at once. And I don't see that the Browns can really keep up with that. Even with the game last week against the Bears, like Judkins only had 21 yards on 12 carries. And it's really all going to depend on what version of the Bills we see defensively this year or this week. It really depends on what version of the Bills we see this week. The version of which wants to either play the pass or play the run, or maybe, God forbid, they try to do both. But I think, like Nico said, the math's in favor of Buffalo. I like them still to win by 10.5. Nick, what was that?
No, because I started doing the delay thing where I'm talking, but my camera's moving later, so I just had to reset. Sorry.
It's for those not watching. Just when Nick reset his camera, it just shows his profile picture on Discord, and it's the Anthony Mackie meme, and
I'll jump into my player to watch real quick. It's kind of a ballsy one considering the good unit that James or it's that James Cook is. He's the unit. That the Browns defense is, but I think this is a game they're going to have their hands full with a lot. Trying to keep tabs on Josh Allen. Of course, the biggest focus for the Browns is getting Myles Garrett to break that record. In the midst of all that, you got your hands full with Josh Allen. James Cook is also going to be a factor, whether it's through the air, short passes, or if he can possibly break away and just kind of get around Myles Garrett. Should be set up still for a very decent amount of volume, and I think that can absolutely become another big explosion for him this week.
and keep it short and sweet. Nick did all the talking for me, but yeah, my player to watch riding with Nick here on Quinshon Judkins because running backs do good against Buffalo. Um, moving on, we have the Chargers at the Cowboys. Cowboys minus 2.5, which I don't know about. I know they're at home, but I thought that was kind of a compliment to Dallas when I don't know if they necessarily deserved it after the week prior. Um, but the 49.5 total for this matchup, and a Chargers team that this season is 3-0 as underdogs. But at the same time, we know the struggles, I think, of this Chargers team pretty well. I mean, Justin Herbert is goated. The receiving room has kind of slowed down, and I think a lot of that gets credited to the O-line just falling apart. And a Dallas team that at the deadline kind of beefed that up, but at the same time, they lost to a 9 in the Vikings last week. But with that being said, I'm taking Dak at home here at minus 2.5. I mean, for me, it came down to just the O line D line discrepancy there. We've seen even in a couple weeks prior with like Josh Allen and that Houston D line that got to him pretty well, and this is a Dallas team that has been doing that job the last couple weeks. So I think that the Chargers defense, while it has been good, this Dallas offense has been just proven that it can surpass some good defenses. Granted, again, last week against Minnesota, not what you wanted to see, but long story short. Dak at home with their backs against the wall to make the playoffs. I like them at 2.5.
I'm rolling with the Chargers here. I know we touched upon the whole Justin Herbert injury, but they've won their last 3 games. Granted, I know last week the Mahomes injury also tragic. Last week was a terrible week for injuries, first of all, but you really hated to see it. But even before he went down, the Chargers look good, especially against that tough Chiefs defense that they've been hard all year, especially that secondary. Herbert still looked good. I mean, that hand, even with the cast or the surgery that he got on, it looks like it really hasn't been bothering him. So I like the Chargers. I know they're dogs away, but they've been on a run. They're they're trying to keep up with Denver in this division. I do think if that D line could get to Dak pretty quickly, I think he's going to have some trouble. They did it pretty well last week against Minnesota. Um, so, I mean, Minnesota did it pretty well last week against Dallas. I think LA can do the same thing. I think they can utilize their defense. That defense has been hot. They've only let up, I'm pretty sure, less than 30 points the last 2 weeks against Philly and Kansas City. So I'm rolling with the Chargers.
Fair enough. I'll keep mine pretty sweet here, or pretty short. The Chargers, the scoring volume worries me for so many reasons. Like I understand that defense has been playing very sound
I'm
recently.
so surprised you're not with the Chargers.
Me
Yeah,
too,
right.
honestly.
I mean,
Your
I took
love
them that
for
one week
Los
where
Angeles.
the 1 week they covered for me, that was cool, but otherwise they've fucked me many times. But yeah, no, that scoring volume for the Chargers has just been something that worries me with how many weapons they have and how little they kind of do with it. And it's really almost like a situation that we were talking about with Denver, where it's like, oh, your defense keeps you in games a lot of times. And right now, Herbert, I mean, I know he has shown that he can still produce with that cast on, but it's definitely been harder for him to get the same production. The numbers he's had in the last couple weeks have been absolutely just completely different from what we saw from him for the first half of the season. I think Dallas has a much more potent offense, and even if they get eliminated before the kickoff even happens, they got a lot of heart on that team. You know, Dak is a competitor, and I don't think they're just going to kind of fizzle out because of that.
Yeah, and with that being said, my player to watch is going to be Javonte Williams, a Chargers front line that has actually given up a decent amount to the running back position. And with that being said, I think that he's going to penetrate those holes.
Oh,
He's a running back. You got to find the hole and you got to go through it.
I wouldn't say he penetrated. I'd just say he
you
finds
got to
it pretty
penetrate it.
easily. I'm also on Javonte Williams. I know I'm rolling with the Chargers here, but I do like this matchup for him. Whether it's not in the rushing game, in the passing game, I think whether it's PPR wise, fantasy leagues, I think he's going to have a pretty solid game, especially matchup wise.
Going with a running back again. With Amari and Hampton, I think I went with him last week, but at the same time, like he's just been starting to get ramped up more and more as this season's kind of coming down to a close, and as he gets healthier, they're gonna need him to kind of take some of the load off of Justin Herbert. This is a Dallas defense that, while it's improved, still isn't necessarily like anything that is crazy efficient. So I think the more that they try to give Herbert some time to get that hand back to 100%, they're going to utilize some of those options, and Hampton's obviously one of those big ones that they can lean on.
And cue the music.
The poop game of the week.
You know what's funny is I had the notes mixed up, so I did not expect that sound, but that works better. That works better. I kept scrolling. No, I was wrong. You were right. Our poop
Good.
game
I was
of
like,
the week.
I needed to fix my mistake from last week. I'm on top of it this week. I made sure.
Poop game of the week is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at the Tennessee Titans. Titans plus 3.5, total of 37.5. For a Chiefs game, that's got to be the lowest in the Mahomes era because unfortunately, no Mahomes. A lot of bad injuries last week, and Mahomes' ACL is gone, which therefore I cannot put my money on Kansas City. This is a little bit of a personal vendetta for me. You could argue this is my rivals in one matchup. I've hated the Titans all season, and although I've loved the Chiefs haven't loved me. In fact, since we've started this podcast, in every Chiefs matchup, so all 10 matchups we've had of Chiefs games, I've gone 1 for 9. 1 for 9. And I haven't picked Kansas City every single time either.
Dude, that's.
I will say the last couple weeks have just been so painful to watch the Chiefs collapse. Like
it's been heartbreaking. I'm not even a Chiefs fan.
It's weird to say like, no, the Chiefs are collapsing. Like we all know, like most teams, if you're not a Chiefs fan, you want the Chiefs to have everything in the worst way. So with Mahomes going out in the ACL
It
tear,
happened.
obviously not how you want to see that. No, that's obviously
No,
not how you want to see that though. But
no.
now, that's it's just been a string of rough weeks. That Kansas City team just hasn't panned out at all.
It's
And you can always give Mahomes his credit for being, at the end of the day, he is an incredible quarterback, generational. But that team itself just didn't come together, and
it kind
rough
of
to see
it
those numbers.
for me last week kind of felt like the 2019 NBA Finals when you saw like Clay and KD go down back to back. And because I felt bad, like the Warriors became an underdog, and I was kind of rooting that way for them. And then you watch the dynasty kind of die within the legs. I mean, granted, the Warriors, retooled and they got a ring after that, but yeah, but you seen Mahomes lose his ACL. I was immediately brought back to that. Just seeing a team that had high expectations, and you just see unluckiness and injuries, and 8 straight one one possession games lost. They're 0-8 this year. And so it's like everything didn't go right for him, and the ACL injury at Mahomes is just the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
With that being said, a line of 3.5, excuse me, 3, it did change right before. So at +3, I did in fact take Tennessee. An ugly one nonetheless. I mean, Gardner Minshew, he's 4-3 against the spread as a road dog, but this is a Titans team that they're 3-4 against the spread at home this season, which usually isn't pretty, but they've been doing well offensively the last few weeks. They've kept themselves in these games, and I just don't think it's good for me mentally to pick the Chiefs again at a line of.
It's a mental
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, just avoid it, man.
I don't know if
Not
I
even
could take the Chiefs seeing them again at -3 like that, like just seeing there's too much here.
It's the Green Goblin, man.
For once in my life, Tennessee, I need you.
Literally.
Yeah, it's just one of those games where like if there was an option to not take a game in the spreadsheet, this would be one of them. Like I just don't like either of these teams. However, the Titans the last 2 weeks put up 29 points. They put up 20 plus points the last 2 weeks. I mean, their offense has been producing, and just even with Mahomes there, that rushing offense was so bad. I mean, he was basically all of it. Now that he's gone, like that whole offense just takes a huge hit. It's something that you can't really bet on. And even with as decent as that defense has been playing, it's not good enough to lead them. They're not playing for anything.
Especially when you have a threat like Jeffrey Simmons out there offensively. For those that didn't watch, Jeffrey Simmons did get a touchdown last week for Tennessee.
Yep. I wonder, was he even
When you have
available
a
from any
threat,
time?
when you have a threat like Jeffries.
Well, that had me questioning it. Like, when you could take a prop of like anytime touchdown score and you pick the defense, does that count? I'm gonna have to look
know.
into that for next episode because that
Yeah.
that had me curious.
Yeah.
It's a good.
I'm also leaning Tennessee here, and I just got zero reason to support the Chiefs in this game. They know they're already done, and to highlight Tennessee, as Nick just said, like they've had an offense that's been productive, even if the numbers for Cam Ward aren't being like, oh really? It's gonna flow into this next part. If I'm gonna can I talk about my player to watch real quick?
Yeah.
I'm Nick's on with me too. Tony Pollard. He's been a guy who's done jack shit all year up until these last couple of weeks. He had a touchdown last week against San Francisco, and you want to talk about a top defensive unit. Cleveland, he dropped 2 on them and 161 yards rushing. Like that, it's weird that the Titans are now starting to find some sort of rhythm, and I know that that's a team you can never have like high expectations for, but Cam Ward now, if he ever just needs to go and dump something off, Tony Pollard's just starting to catch up, or starting to catch fire a little bit these last couple of weeks. And if we're going against a Chiefs team that probably just has zero motivation, I would say this could be a weirdly ugly game.
I have to give so much thanks to Tony Pollard. In my 14-man fantasy league, I'm now in the second round of the playoffs, and 14-man league. Running backs are as scarce as can get. You can't make a single trade for a running back. And about 4 weeks ago, Tony Pollard was on the waiver wire, which like at the time my running back room was Isaiah Pacheco and Jordan Mason. So he seemed like a beautiful pick. And I've had to start in the last 2 weeks, and I have 28 points 2 weeks ago against Cleveland, 18 against San Francisco. in this specific league, I've gone into almost every single week projected to lose by at least every week I'm seeing like 40, 41%. And we're fighting. We're dogs. And Tony Pollard has been that dog for me. Um and I unfortunately did not ride with you guys on that player to watch, but I had to give him a shout out.
That's rude.
Not too far off.
Yeah, I like Cam Ward in this spot. The Chiefs D line is unless it's Chris Jones, they really haven't been able to get to the quarterback, and he's looked really really well the last few weeks. So I think that continues, and if we're putting this in a fantasy points perspective, I think Cam Ward finishes with over 17.5.
Wait, how many passing yards?
Okay.
You think he breaks 200 passing yards?
I think he
Yeah.
realistically could.
It's been a number that he's been having trouble cracking all year. So
He's an athlete, man.
Almost did it last week.
100%.
People talk about him as maybe not be living up to the number one overall pick, but I still think he is most definitely the QB1 of the class.
You cannot throw a rookie quarterback just straight into the fire and be like, you better lead it.
Hey,
Like,
unless you're a
Your
little bit
head coach
older.
gets fired. Your head coach gets fired halfway through the season.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
doing what he can.
But let's
Funniest thing that I remember is him in the beginning of the year. He's like, to put it straight, we ass. I'm like, oh damn.
I normally don't listen to anything pregame,
yeah, that's
You ever
weird.
see those
That's
videos?
weird. Yeah.
and then it's just the highlights of him with no sound.
That
Like, the video's mute.
that's psychotic. He's got to have some I don't know, dreams and nightmares. To put something on, Yeah, you can't go into it.
Nothing.
He
White noise.
probably doesn't like smelling salts. How does he get himself fired up? You watching Coco Melon?
Probably. Cocomelon.
I don't know why Coco Melon came to mind.
Yeah.
But with that said, more music
Okay.
that Cam Ward doesn't like.
We got a pick of the week.
All right. I'm excited about this one.
You should
Um,
be. It's your player.
looking-
It's your
I am.
lock. I know you weren't.
It's-
You
I
weren't
do.
excited about the Browns, unfortunately. So we're off to a
I'm
better
excited-
start.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. Dogs. Are they dogs? No. Pretty sure they're home. No, they're favorites against Miami. I don't know if they're home or away. That's my fault. They
They're
are
on-
away.
they're on the
They're in
road.
Miami.
You sound so confident. I'm sorry. You sold
Ah.
me.
Yeah. Bengals on the road, headed down to Miami. Favorites at 3.5. Total at 50.5. Shutout last week. It was a really, really rough game. But if you take a look at the stats, they led almost every category over Baltimore offensively. Nearly 40 minutes of possession time. They led the Ravens in third and fourth down conversions on offense. I mean, the offense was moving. It's just for some reason with Joe Burrow being back, he's had this thing of just throwing picks. He had those two crucial ones in that Bills game. I mean, they had that game not necessarily in the bag, but they were up 2 scores, and then that pick six really ruined it. And then get the ball back and immediately throws a pick. He's been adjusting after being out for so long. They already came out and said they're not shutting him down this season. No, he's going to play the rest of the year. Because of that, I like this line. I like this game. The Bengals, this offense has been pretty dominant still with the last few weeks. They've been putting up numbers. Jamar Chase has not scored in 2 months. I'm pretty sure since yesterday. His last touchdown he recorded was on October 16th. However, he's still the wide receiver 5 in fantasy. Last week, 10 catches, 132 receiving yards. I mean, the production is still there. It's going to be there. And especially against this Miami team who now is benching Tua. The only 2 touchdowns that they scored last week were garbage time touchdowns to Darren Waller, which seems to be the common theme in Miami the last 2 years. But I mean, this team decided that they're just done this year. Starting Quinn Ewers this week, it's going to be rough. And I mean, if you're a Miami fan, you're hopeful that it's going to be at least a decent start against the worst defense in the league. I mean, granted, this Cincinnati defense is still terrible. I mean, Achan has been dominant all year, but just how good that Cincinnati's been playing, and the stat of teams being shut out this season are 5-0 against the spread, 35-17 and 3 all time. I just like the stats here. I think the Cincinnati offense is just going to overpower Miami. And I also think that this Cincinnati defense that hasn't really been able to do anything all year can finally do something against a rookie quarterback getting his first start. And also, pretty interesting stat. Since 2000, the Miami Dolphins have had 26 different starting quarterbacks. This is Quinn Ewers will be number 26. Dan Marino retired in 2000, so it kind of tells you like this whole quarterback situation in Miami that they've had. And they also allow up to 17 points per game to wide receivers in fantasy this season. So even if T. Higgins isn't playing, it's still gonna, it's still gonna be the Jamar Chase show. So I'm liking Cincy this week.
I got 4 words for everybody. Jamar Chase 30 bomb.
CTV.
I was thinking about that before I said it. I was like, oh, I can't have a Charles Barkley moment there.
I thought you were just about to do that on purpose.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, must see TV.
I definitely think, last year it was the Jamar Chase Joe Burrow show against Baltimore where he exploded for 50 points. Maybe this is the week where it happens. Fantasy playoffs, semis, it's against a bad team. If I'm Joe Burrow, I'm pissed. You're coming back. The production, like you've been sitting out this long. They finally throw you in. You have all your weapons here, and you haven't been able to perform. And you're now kind of ruled out of the playoff run. At this point, you're just playing to finish out the season. And if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm gonna look at the guy that you targeted 10 plus times last week again.
I mean, your biggest problem with this, as you know, I am on Cincinnati as well, but your biggest problem is Joe Burrow said he's not having fun. Which,
Well, he can change it around this week.
playing in Miami, facing a backup QB, you gotta have, like, come on.
Come on, there's some fun in there.
You're
There's
playing your
plenty of
home
fun in
games in Ohio, and you're gonna say football's not fun, and then go travel to the beach.
It's like Arch Manning, when he goes against a team that isn't like a top 25. Like, this is what that should be considered. Joe Burrow should just go out there and just try to have some fun with this one. And for me, unfortunately, I'm also on the Bengals here. But no, not unfortunately. I like this pick. I like this pick because
Yeah.
with Tua being out, that offense, that team, the Dolphins are just a shit show. We saw at the end of that Steelers game. Did you see their clock management? It was super weird. It's not like it was exactly a close game, but McDaniel was taking like the entirety of the play clock. They were just fully like waving the white flag. Aikman was like, "They're giving up." He literally said in the broadcast, "Looks like the Dolphins are just giving up." And then they kept within like a score, and they're like, "Oh, they're gonna try the onside here." I'm like, "Yeah, well, there's like fucking 30 seconds left." But
Yeah, it took
nothing to
it took
lose
7
here.
minutes to get down the field in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And nothing to lose here for either team, but if the Bengals are going to keep Joe Burrow and just keep playing, football as if it's just another game that does count, Dolphins don't really stand a chance to me.
Yeah, and my player to watch, just as like I said, my 4 words: Jamar Chase 30 bomb. Don't overthink it.
See 3 words.
Yeah.
There.
Now you got me second guessing myself.
You're missing a last name.
What?
The sheet. I'm looking at the sheet. Looking at your notes. I'm only seeing 3 words there.
Well, yeah, and I said 4 words. I made a last second audible.
All right.
And your player to watch?
I'm looking for Mr. Fun Guy himself. He's gonna have a great time this week. He's gonna go out there, giggles, lots of smiles on his face, going against a Dolphins team that he knows that defense equally as bad as the one that he has on his own team, and that's just backyard football for him at this point. Joe Burrow, go have a day. You got nothing to lose here for the rest of the season. Try to get things back on track, make up some lost time. In that combo between him and Chase, I think there could be something really good this week.
And now we move to my what I would call the toughest game that I think I had to pick. Nick talks about the poop game of the week being the one that he would ask not to pick, and this is mine. Another thrilling matchup here. We got the Jaguars at the Broncos. Broncos -3, a total of 45.5. The Broncos 11-game win streak, 2-7 against the spread as favorites this year. A little interesting there. Whereas Jacksonville 5-0 against the spread in their last 5. A Jacksonville defense that has just been dominating. They allow the fewest rushing yards per game, 4th best defensive EPA, and it's really tough to bet against them, especially for my distaste for the quarterback out in Colorado, even after his best career game. But I put a saddle on that horse. I strapped up the boots. I put on my cowboy hat. I'm riding Denver. I don't love it, to be honest. Again, I'm not putting my money on this game. I think it's going to be a thrilling one, but the Denver defense is still just the best, well, second best in the league behind Houston. And while Jacksonville, they're right up there when it comes to most defensive metrics. This Denver team has taken care of some bigger names and some better defenses than Jacksonville has in the past. So it was almost like a 45-55, but then taking Denver at the fact that they are at home, I think that's just it gives them a little bit of a boost, which was enough for me to put them there at Denver -3.
I'm with you here. It's these things are just like slight advantages right now. This is a really tough one for me to pick, and regardless of the Bo Nix opinion that at this point put that to bed. He came off a stellar performance, but so did T Law. Now those two defenses, two of the scariest defenses in my opinion, going to clash against each other. And it's going to be super interesting to just see how this plays out. I don't think that it's going to be any team really decides it. I think this is going to be pretty close the entire time. Bo Nix definitely has one of the bigger challenges. I know we keep saying that every week, but now with the way that this Jacksonville defense has been playing, it has a huge challenge to just stay consistent. They're going to They're going to punish the hell out of him, and vice versa. Nick Benito is going to try to give T Law hell. But I think with Denver being at home, that slight little boost of that whole win streak they got going on right now, they got a lot to defend and honestly a lot going momentum wise in their favor.
I'm leading Jacksonville. Fading to the both of you. Not fading Bo Nix though. I don't need the internet coming to crucify me.
No,
I
you're
wasn't in the
fading him
but
too. You're fading him.
You're currently
fading.
I am
Bo
fading
Nix.
him. I like the production that this Jacksonville defense has done, and this Denver Broncos team, for the record, 12-2. They're 6-8 against the spread, and this is a team that since the Cowboys game on October 26th, they haven't won a game more than 7 points until last week. So that's like at least almost, yeah, I want to say that's like 5-6 weeks that it's been at least within 7 that they've won. So not necessarily saying I get the lines at 3, but all these games have been close. They've been very close games. So with the line at +3, with how this Jaguars defense has been playing, and plus how the Jaguars offense looked last week, I mean, Trevor Lawrence looked insane. BTJ is starting to catch fire. Jacoby Myers, too, has been a great addition to this offense. Really is kind of what they needed. And they're looking to push for a division. I mean, they're leading into the division right now. Houston's right behind them. And this would be a huge statement win if they can go into Denver and pull it off. Do I think they do that? I don't know, but I do like the line at +3. I think it's going to be close
Guy,
enough.
put none of this. I don't know.
I could be
Confidence in your
I could be realistic. I could be realistic. Alright?
The scene in I was just about to say Jordan Belfort. But the iconic
Wall Street.
thank you, where it's like, sell me this pen. You would the opinion I'm getting from you right now is you're like, well, like a pencil could do what the pen does, but I think you would like this pen.
No, I think Jacksonville pulls this off.
Confidently.
There we go.
I confidently think Trevor Lawrence and this offense, the way that they've been producing the last few weeks, and especially how this defense has been playing against a Denver team that hasn't been good against the spread and likes to keep it close. Yeah, I do think so.
They enjoy keeping it close for the thrill.
They do.
I want to real quick do just a quick counter argument here. Obviously we aren't on the same side here for this spread pick. Jacksonville looked great last week, but they also went against the Jets and Brady Cook. For just a real quick here, Broncos country, for those people saying that I hate to see the Broncos win, I could give a fuck what the outcome of your season is, really. Genuinely, I don't care if you win, lose, if Nick stays healthy or not. Don't care about that. That was a one-time opinion there. I'm on your side this one, and I think the Jags, looked good last week, but now they're playing a team, the defense that's not the Jets, a defense that is one of the best in the league. Trevor Lawrence is going to have a lot more trouble here, and that's also, let's talk about some climate change real quick. they're going straight from Florida into Denver. That ball ain't gonna fly the same. Denver's used to this. I just think it's not really in Jacksonville's favor. But I see your point completely.
Looking at those 2 points and how I am behind, or unless, do you have a rebuttal, Nick? Anything you want to say?
Nope.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were about
No, just roll Jags, baby. Duval.
to. Kind
Long way
of.
from home.
I've got like I'm trying to figure out a game script, and thinking my player to watch. Two good defenses, two teams that are on incredible hot streaks, and over under 45.5. And I think this is going to be a game of the kickers. Two good defenses. Maybe that end zone's tough to find. I think Will Lutz is going to have a very good week this week in fantasy. And he's my player to watch. With 110,000% confidence.
It's like I could be behind a Will Lutz pick. He's a great he was great for the Saints too before he went to Denver, and to that point, like this could be a game where there is a lot of field goals where things can't go with him with the 40. He's got a decent leg too. After shitting on the Jags going well against the Jets, and now they're playing the Broncos, I'm gonna go T-Law here just to ride the momentum of his game last week. He did do a great job, basically making everything happen. And if he can just stay locked into his own like that, he can give Denver a bit of trouble. And I'm not going to say that he's going to have a 50-point performance, but I do look for him to possibly keep that momentum up and keep seeing the field pretty well. When you're going against the Broncos, you're going to have pressure up your ass for 4 quarters straight. It's just about being ready for that. And I think that Trevor Lawrence has the wheels to move. And I think that he'll be ready to have to get out of some sticky situations.
I am also on a Jag. I am on Jacoby Myers. I already touched upon this previously, but since he's been the addition to this offense, he has, he's found his limelight again. I mean, he was struggling a lot in Las Vegas. Granted, I mean that freaking Raiders offense sucks. So actually going where there's a little bit of control, he's really produced. He's been a nice solid addition for T-Law, and especially if Brian Thomas isn't having the game that he's normal to having, or if he's getting locked down. I see him being a viable option for T-Law. He's going to probably get a lot of targets. So I'm liking Jacoby here.
That was my visual of.
Yeah.
We got a pick of the week.
I was worried that when I made that sound that like, oh, it's like celebrating, almost like we hit it. Like maybe it's like the one, oh my God, we all did it. But, it's premature because it's going to hit. I'm talking about
Obviously.
I'm talking about the Steelers at the Lions. Lions minus 7.5. That is my pick of the week. Highest total 51.5. We've seen the script before. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell are 15-0 after a loss, and they're 14-1 against the spread. They played well against the Rams, but the Rams just are a little bit better, unfortunately. In this matchup, Pittsburgh, the offense, I'm not sold. Even against Miami, it looked stagnant. One of your biggest plays was a tight end run. Just Aaron Rodgers, he really is not going to do much mobility-wise. And granted, he hasn't necessarily had to in these ways, but DK finally had a good game, and you paid him that much, and he really hasn't been that big of a focal point. Whereas this Detroit team, I've praised them in the past, still top 10 in both offensive and defensive EPA. Whereas the Pittsburgh defense has had its struggles. You did well against Miami in a cold weather situation for Tua, and now he's the emergency quarterback. I don't think that gives credit to the Pittsburgh defense. I just think that's more a shot at Tua. So I think, following the trends of how Detroit's been off a loss, I love it, again, especially at home. And just to spoil my player to watch here too, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the worst team statistically against the tight end position through week 15. The last 3 weeks, they've allowed 3 touchdowns to that position, and that's why I'm taking the tight end number 3, who just recently got activated off of IR for the Lions. That's Shane, I hope I'm saying the last name right, Zylstra, Zylstra. I definitely said it wrong, but 15 career receptions, he's going to have a game against Detroit. The lines for the props weren't out yet, but the tight end position's been free against Pittsburgh, and I think he's a cool name to highlight. And I have full confidence in this Lions team to cover by 7.
Full confidence.
Full. None.
That's
Full,
weird to see. I'm
full.
hammering that line now. That's a 3 unit play, just because I love this guy's energy. No. Yeah. you know,
I'm
I
feeling it off the real.
Why
It's off
stop
the
at
reels.
3? Put the mortgage, the college fund for the kids, the car. It's
no,
all going on Detroit.
I think hit the nail on the head there. Pittsburgh wasn't exactly impressive to me beating a team like Miami that again they literally waved the white flag at the end, and Tua just looked so bad that game, and we all already knew that he's had a bad record just in cold weather, and yeah, Johnny Smith, no, not Johnny Smith, was it Johnny Smith?
It was Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Johnny Smith running it in the end zone is. Yeah, they said in the commentary, they're like, his first rushing touchdown this year. I'm like, when would he have gotten another one? He's a fucking tight end.
I hate
But
you, Arthur Smith. I
Um,
hate an Arthur Smith offense.
It's
no,
so
absolutely.
bad, dude.
But no, but Detroit, like, potently has such a better offense than Pittsburgh. And you look at Dan Campbell, and I absolutely trust his play calling and his ability to know how to take care of business over Tomlin right now. I know Tomlin said he's felt like he's been on the hot seat forever, but this is now Detroit playing to save their season in a way, while Pittsburgh's just trying to stay on top of the division. I think that Detroit has a lot more to lose and still has so much left in the tank to prove in terms of like offense. So I like your pick here. Nothing against it. I hope it hits with 110% confidence in my hope.
I agree here. I mean, if there's a coach that I'm terrified of to go against that is on the hot seat of trying to win out their division, it's probably Dan Campbell because this is a guy that will literally do anything in the game to stay in the game, to stay on top. Go for it on fourth down, fake punts, fake field goals. We saw one last week. I mean, you never know what he could pull out here. It's going to be I think this is actually going to be a really good game, Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin, coaching wise. I mean, we just shit on the Arthur Smith offense. I mean, DK Metcalf last week scored. He only had 3 targets. So like it's kind of a mix, and this Pittsburgh defense really hasn't been as dominant as they've been the last few years. I mean, 242 passing yards in the through the air. That's 28th in the NFL. And if there's one thing that we know about this Lions team is if you get Goff going early on, they'll make you regret it. So I also like Detroit here. I think it's a pretty good pick, and I have 110% confidence that it hits also.
We're just manifesting it as a group. I'm getting the team efforts all aligned. This is perfect. The other cool thing about the
Candle
Steelers.
emoji.
What?
It's the candle emojis in the big circle. It just says Nico's pick of the week. You see that on Twitter?
We're just
It's
yeah,
a man
we're doing a ritual now. We're bringing in
Yeah.
rituals to force my Lions win. Which again, the Steelers team, they have not won back-to-back games since the beginning of October. So I don't have too much faith there. When I say too much, I mean none. But moving forward, we've got, or actually, excuse me, I already talked about my player to watch, but you guys have the same, so it makes it easy.
Nick, I'll let you take this
Uh,
one.
I'm going with Ken Gainwell. I mean, it in my opinion, it's kind of a toss up between the Pittsburgh running backs. It's either Jalen Warren has the hot hand or Ken Gainwell does. And the last few weeks, it's been Gainwell. He's been pretty dominant. Not necessarily even in the rushing game, but just pass wise, he had 7 catches. I'm pretty sure last game, 40 yards. But I mean, fantasy wise, production wise, it's a solid option. If if he's on the waiver wire and you need someone to start at flex, especially with the key injuries, a few of them this week, I would pick him up.
And now we are heading into prime time. Granted, I guess we already technically had a couple this week with Saturday as well, but Sunday Night Football, the second SNF of the week. New England at Baltimore. Baltimore is -3. And a Patriots team that, as we highlighted earlier, did not cover against the Bills in quite a shootout through the ground. This is, New England's got a lot of flack for the schedule that they've had this year, and their second biggest test of the year. If you have to rank like difficulty of matchups for New England, it's been both Buffalo games and then a Tampa team that was pretty beat up. So there are reasons to doubt them. The defense hasn't been incredible, especially after the Milton Williams injury. So in this route, I am taking Baltimore here, and New England, they have a game that they're not necessarily cooked if they don't win this game. Whereas obviously Baltimore is definitely playing for their season. But New England hasn't necessarily done well this year against mobile quarterbacks, kind of similar to Philadelphia. And it really comes down to me, just like the health of Lamar. But I have like it's not my favorite pick to make. Obviously, fading the team that I like, but I don't see a world where New England goes into New England or goes into New England where the Patriots head over to Baltimore and they take this win.
I do. I'm rolling with my team, the New England Patriots, and it's not all bias aside. This team has been also just a very good team against the spread, 9-5 on the year with the 11-3 record. They've also been a really good team on the road against the spread. Uh, and you know, it also goes into the question of how Lamar looks and what version of Lamar we're gonna get. They did shut out the Bengals last week, but he didn't really produce. I mean, he wasn't really that much of an impact. And New England, they've had some time to kind of rest after last week's game, and it was a shootout. I mean, this run offense is really no joke. I feel like they've kind of showed that. I mean, Travion Henderson, with the slow start that he had to the beginning of the season, he's really stepped up in that RB1 role. Even with Stevenson back, he's kind of won that whole running back position. So I just and this Baltimore defense too. Yeah, they just shut out the Cincinnati Bengals, but aside from that, I mean, this Patriots offense has still been able to produce against tough defenses like the Bucks and like other teams. So I'm still rolling with my team here. Primetime game, tough loss against a division rival. However, if God forbid, not fading your pick, Brooklyn, but if Buffalo does lose and Patriots do win, AFC East is right back where it could be. So, you know,
Well, I definitely don't see a route where the Bills end up losing to the Browns. So maybe not. Your hope might not be like, you might not be cursing my minus 10.5. I don't think the Bills lose to the
I'm not
Browns and they
fading.
win.
I'm
But
not fading your pick. I'm not fading your pick. I'm just like the Patriots fan in me. It's just
oh no, I get it.
that would be
100%.
cool.
And the Bills fan to me is the same way. So if I'm looking at this game where it is Detroit. Sorry, Detroit. Sorry, Sean just tried to call me on Discord. Sorry, if you're looking at this game where it is the Pats in a game that they definitely need to win, like this division's gonna be wide open if they possibly lose this game. And big loss to Buffalo really makes this a situation where they can't spare any points. So I like the production that they've had in Baltimore defensively hasn't really just been impressive to me. So that being said, I can't really defend Baltimore too much. Lamar's health is going to play into it a lot, but I think the Patriots know that they need to come out of this one with a win.
Yo, tell Sean to shut up. You're recording. I hear that ringing.
Yeah. Hey,
If you kind of like
weird
decline
reason.
it, it keeps coming in.
My player watching this matchup's Derrick Henry. We saw James Cook dominate against the Pats D line last week, and it's been a theme for the last few. So my script is for the Ravens to cover this matchup. It's going to be with a couple touchdowns from Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I'm also riding Derrick Henry. I know I was just talking about New England and how I'm confident. Still am, but I mean, I am, being realistic. Last week, James Cook, he did look really, really good against the Patriots. And same thing. I mean, if Lamar is still limited, they are gonna feed Derrick Henry, especially if that D line's beat up. So yeah, I do see it happening. I do see the production being there for him, anyways.
And I'm going with Lamar here as much as I would love for the Pats to prove me right here for my spread pick, but they both can happen in this specific situation. But Lamar, been waiting for him to just kick things back in high gear, and he had a great game against Cincinnati. Although he didn't do too much like on the passing side of things, only eight completions, 2 touchdowns nonetheless. But he has shown that steady improvement, getting himself back week by week. And in a game where everything kind of has to be on the line for him, I think that's where you, as a star, as the guy of your team, that's when you make the sacrifices and you kind of just leave it all out in the field.
And that leaves us with Monday Night Football. Brock Purdy heading to Indianapolis to face what's still left in the tank of Phillip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts. Line at 6.5 in favor of San Francisco. Keep it short and sweet here for me. Phillip Rivers, yeah, he did the job, but I could get proven wrong here, but I can't put faith in a 44-year-old quarterback to right off the couch to go out. Excuse me, holy voice crack.
Wow.
I can't expect Philip Rivers to get off the couch and cover a spread against two dominant teams in the NFC West. Um, so yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy, they take care of business. But at the same time, if there is a script for the Colts, I think it is through the run game. San Francisco hasn't necessarily been prolific in that way, and that's why I think Jonathan Taylor still is in play to have a good game. But I do think that San Francisco takes care of business quite easily.
Yes, me as well. I think that when you're going against a coach like Shanahan, and also Shanahan, almost like it's almost like coach versus coach, Rivers or Shanahan. But a lot of things were kind of in question watching the Colts play. Like, yes, Rivers threw a touchdown, 120 yards passing, but they did not try to throw the ball downfield at all. Like, they played that game so conservatively. And yes, you have to. You got a 44-year-old guy in the field back for the first time in years, and JT saw a lot of volume, but that just raises so many concerns that like you got a quarterback for what? Just a placeholder position, essentially. Like, can Rivers really throw the ball down the field? What's his arm strength looking like? With that being said, I'm also here with San Francisco, a team that just health wise it is just in a better scenario right now. With Purdy being back and at least getting back into the swing of things, McCaffrey's been great, and Kittle has been reliable to say the least. And you have a couple threats that are still in the receiving game. I know Pearsall has just been really non-existent, but Juwan Jennings had a big week last week, and they can find some ways to victory against a Colts team that right now is just gonna probably try to do everything they can just to come out of here with a win, no matter how boring it is. So I like San Francisco here to know that you just got to keep JT out of the end zone for the most part, and then just limit a very still probably rusty Philip Rivers. And to me, I don't think that the Colts are going to put up much of a fight.
Yeah, I originally was actually on the Colts yesterday when I filled the spreadsheet out, but then I flipped. I changed. I'm on San Fran. They've won their last four. They've covered the spread in their last four. I'm gonna also keep it short and sweet. You guys basically touched upon everything. It's just more so for me. It's another interesting division, man. I mean, they're 10-4. They've already beat the Rams once this year. If the Rams drop a game, like this division's wide open. I mean, there's just a lot of really good playoff indications that can happen these next few weeks. And there's a lot of teams that you know we didn't think necessarily at the beginning of the season that we're going to make a run. And now, I mean, looking down at it now at week 16, it's pretty close. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
And with that, I think we're into rapid fire.
Whoop, whoop.
Doing our best Chris Berman impressions as always, going through some of the matchups that we didn't think were too prolific, but we got to throw them in here. So we've got five. I'm going to do my best to talk as quick as I can about them. Starting in 3, 2, 1. We've got the Bucks at the Panthers. Panthers at home plus 3, 44 or 45.5 total under. The Bucks 6 straight L's against the spread, but they're better rested and they're minus 400 to win the division. They play Carolina twice. I think they take care of business at least in one of them, and I'm taking them this week. My player to watch in this matchup is going to be Bucky Irving for the Bucks here. Moving forward, I have 9 and the Vikings facing off against the Giants, the two flashy white boys that are taking over. McCarthy having a great game last week against the Cowboys, and I'm going to actually continue that success here on the road, -3, taking another road favorite here. I don't love that Giants defense, and I think Justin Jefferson has a good game against that secondary that is ranked 24th according to PFF. Jets at Saints, -4.5 in favor of the Saints. That's where I'm going. Brady Cook, oh my. I mean, not your best start in the NFL. Last weekend, ass blasted by the Jags. Whereas the Saints, they took care of business. 2-12 in the first half, but they're last 5, they're 4-1 against the spread in total games. And I think that the Jets in their 30th ranked points allowed to the running back position in DFS is the reason that Kamara or Audric Estime has a good game, whoever that RB1 is in New Orleans. Moving forward, we've got Kirk Cousins versus Jacoby Brissett. Falcons, Cardinals, 47.5 total. Cardinals are -3. That's where I'm going. Jacoby Brissett can sling it. He has the most fantasy points against the Houston defense, and that was last week, getting 21, best performance out of any quarterback. And they've been a good team at covering the spread. I think this Cardinals team is a lot better than the record shows, and Brissett has a good game. Largest spread of the week now, we've got the Raiders at the Texans. Texans -14.5. yeah, the Texans defense can maybe win them this whole game. Maybe they don't have to be out there on offense. I take Houston defense. They're projected 12, which I think is already so crazy for a defense, but they're probably getting over 16.
They
And
projected
that's it.
12 points in fantasy.
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's more than probably like
Kenneth Walker.
5 offensive players on the Raiders. Oh, or yeah, and Kem Walker. Yeah.
I just know
That's
that 'cause
crazy.
Ken Walker has 10 and it pissed me off. But yeah.
Well, nicely done. I'll bag my out here. Yeah, starting from the top, Tampa Bay, Carolina. One that I wanted to take Carolina in, but I think Tampa Bay has a lot of fire in their gut, especially coming off of that choke job to Atlanta. So I think they come out here and again having to beat Carolina, at least one of these two. I do think they take this one. My player to watch was Mike Evans coming back. They thought he looked a little rusty with his injury, but he ultimately put up a pretty great performance there. Just couldn't get it done on the defensive execution side of things. Moving on, yep, the white boys with a little bit of motion between the Vikings and Giants. Going with Jettas as well here, and as far as the spread side, I'm going with the Vikings. They showed a little bit more consistency. The Giants really don't have anything to play for. If anything, they're trying to almost lose this game on purpose so they can kind of secure that number 1 pick. But yeah, going with Jettas this week. He's had a rough run last couple of weeks, especially honestly all season. But I think with the amount of time that they've been trying to force him the ball, a lot of those targets coming in the red zone, he's bound to get one of them against a struggling defense here. Jets versus New Orleans, going with Tyler Shuck here. I know we have talked a little bit of shit about him the entire time, but this is one where you kind of just can't go with the Jets. Brady Cook, 3 interceptions last game. Didn't ultimately look the worst. Max Brosmer has actually cemented that to me in terms of a rookie start out of nowhere. But ultimately, Shuck has had some momentum and honestly has looked pretty good in his last couple of starts. He's 3-3 since starting, 2-1 in his last 3. And in terms of completion percentage, right around 67%. Going on, moving into Atlanta, Arizona. For this one, though, I did actually go ahead and take Atlanta. I do think that Arizona's defense has kind of slipped up recently. I think that the Falcons have, found a little bit more of production, and maybe, it's for nothing. But at the same time, Kyle Pitts was exceptional last week. And there is always that threat of Bijan, and even, Tyler Algier will be the threat to get into the end zone. A lot going in a positive direction for Atlanta, whereas Arizona kind of is just stuck in some still water. Going into now, or was that it? Oh no, sorry. We got Vegas, Houston. Vegas, Houston. Yeah. This was one that I think we're all in the same boat here. The Vegas has no chance, and honestly, could see a shutout this week. Houston's defense has just been on fire the entire time. The only thing that I was here to note is that I think Nico Collins is going to have another big game here. C.J. Stroud has probably going to get plenty of opportunities in this game to see that baseball, see the ball. Throughout the entirety of the game, as Houston is not gonna let the Raiders do much of anything. That is it. Yeah, Nico, Bartolo, Colon, Collins.
Nico, Bartolo, Cologne, Collins. Nice.
It rolls right off the tongue. Good connection
right.
there.
All right, rapid fire. My turn. All right, so to start off, we got Tampa at Carolina +3. I'm also rolling with the Bucks here. I was really high on this team at the beginning of the season, and Baker's been hurt. They've since been not a pretty good team against the spread, but however, like Nico already touched upon, they play Carolina twice. I also think this is the week that they win, especially if Tech gets ruled out. That makes it a little bit harder for Bryce Young. I'm also rolling with Bucky Irving in this game. Minnesota at the Giants +3, rolling with Minnesota -3. This defense has kind of been the same question of like they're week by week. Some weeks they look like how they looked last year when they were a top 5 defense ranked in fantasy, and then this year where they just get trampled. I was in favor of the Giants last week. They disappointed me. They looked terrible against one of the worst graded defenses in the league. So rolling with the hot-handed Vikings, and I think Jettas gets into the end zone this week. There's no way that he doesn't. If he doesn't, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm a little bit concerned. Moving on, Jets at Saints. Rolling with the Saints here. Tyler Cuck has looked great. I think if I just keep calling him that, he's just going to keep producing that way. But in full seriousness, my player to watch, Chris Olave. He's kind of shown that no matter who's throwing the ball to him, he's going to produce. Last week, he had, I'm pretty sure, 80 receiving yards and a touchdown. The double-digit targets are still there. This Jets defense sucks. Have no takeaways this season defensively. So yeah, rolling with the Saints here. Atlanta at Arizona, rolling with the Birds. The Cardinals here, not the Falcons. I just, especially with how beat up this run game is, Jacoby Brissett, he's been slinging it. He averages 35 passing attempts per game, and this Atlanta passing defense that was pretty good at the beginning of the season has since fallen off. So because of that, I do like their chances. I think that if the defense isn't able to limit Brissett and him being able to throw the ball, I think they're going to be able to keep up. And lastly, Vegas against Houston. I'm really big on this Houston team. I honestly think that they're the dark horse in this AFC if they keep it up just because of how good this defense is. Raiders team total is at 10.5 again this week. It is actually favored at minus 115. I would take that. I actually already bet it. Yeah, this is going to be an ugly one for Kenny Pickett and for the Raiders offense that haven't been able to produce in general. And when you're going up against a team like this, I am concerned. And player to watch also really quickly, CJ Stroud. I think, with the run that they're making, with how good this defense is, the whole problem of this Texans team has been the consistency of their offense. And with the matchup that is here, it's a good time for Stroud to get it going. So that's what I see here.
All right. Good job, everybody. And before we send you guys home, we've got a little like that lay, our prop picks of the week, which you can stake by themselves. Don't get me wrong, it's all our most confident props, but I always put them in a lay to make it a little bit more exciting, give it a little bit more of a payout because if we go off of 1 week, we're 3 for 3. Incredible week last week, like I was talking about when it came to props. But with that being said, my prop pick of the week is going to be J.J. McCarthy over 185.5 passing yards. And it's sitting at, sorry, I just had something on my computer pop up here, but we're at minus 112 on that. McCarthy, he's only hit that in 2 games, one of them being last week against the Cowboys, getting over 250. But this is a Giants defense that has allowed over 185 passing yards to in 12 of their 14 games this season. The 2 games where it did not hit, both those quarterbacks had 170 passing yards. A decent high over under. They're seeing about 2.5 touchdowns for Minnesota here, and they're talking about an offense that's off back-to-back weeks of 30 plus points. I already talked about the secondary for the Giants being pretty bad, ranked 24th. So I think it's a perfect storm here for 9 to have another good game.
Well, let's get the train rolling here with these QB picks. This one kind of similar rationale to last week here. I'm going to go ahead and take CJ Stroud over 224.5 passing yards at currently minus 113 odds. Has covered 3 of his last 5, and this is kind of a simple one for me in terms of Houston's going to keep the ball out of Vegas's hands for a good part of this game. So if I'm looking at this one here, Texans also have a 57% pass rate when it comes to their play calling, so they do favor the pass. Stroud is also starting to pick things up efficiency wise as the entire Houston team has. Last game he had 260 yards, and against the Colts he also had 276 yards, and fantasy points wise maybe it doesn't stand out there, but betting wise he covers that number. And also has a couple of other times throughout this year for him to get to 24.5, where I think he's gonna have the ball in his hands a ton. I think this has a good shot.
All right, and I will end off here on the quarterback picks. I am rolling with Jacoby Brissett over in passing yards. Line set at 247.5. Odds are minus 111. I wish I could just see. Okay, here we go. Finally, Jesus, I just have things pop up on my screen. I don't know what's going on here. Sorry, guys. The notes are a little messed up here. Brissett though, he's covered this line 82% this season. I literally I can't even. Brissett's covered this line 82% of the season. I already touched upon his passing attempts. He averages 35 passing attempts per game. I also mentioned this Falcons defense. In the last 8 games, the last 8 starting quarterbacks have hit their overline in passing yards. So this pass defense really hasn't been as great as we've talked about before. And Bam Knight sent on IR. This run game that wasn't really already there, just non-existent. I mean, Michael Carter was a guy that was already rumored to be the RB1 spot, and he other than like 1 or 2 weeks, he really has had no utilization. So I still see Brissett. At least the attempts will be there for this line to hit, but I have pretty high confidence that he at least gets 250 against this Falcons defense.
3 passing yards props. I love it. Also, for reference to when I was looking for research here, a lot of the lines were down. We didn't have, I guess, full coverage. One I almost wanted to do was Brees Hall over in rushing yards, but I couldn't actually get an open line for that. So we went with a passing yards prop. And if you took the 3 and you put them together, what were you
No,
gonna
I
say?
think it was mostly I would think it was probably just because injury reports weren't out at that time yet, too. Because Devin Neal wasn't ruled out yet before you were trying to look for rushing props, and then after he was ruled out,
That's true.
so they probably didn't have a set game line.
If you took our 3 plays, you put them all together, that's going to create a parlay of plus 578, which I already staked. So best of luck to all those that decide to tail. Again, we hit last week 3 for 3. And if you're an angry Broncos fan and you want to make some comments at us, social media as always is like that _pod. Posting again some non-podcast content on there as well. But that's all for me, guys. We had a great week last week. It's tough to to do better, but I think there's a route. There's also a fun fact: 50% of the games this week, the 3 of us all agreed on, which might be a podcast high.
I was talking to Brooklyn before we started recording, and I was like, wow, there is a lot of games that we are agreeing on this week. But honestly, I'm glad that it is this week because there's a lot of good matchups this week. So I'm glad that at least for a few of them, we're all going to be rooting together for the same team and not rooting against each other.
Exactly. Picks of the week: Brooklyn, Buffalo -10.5. Myself, Detroit -7, and Nick at Cincinnati minus, I think it was a 3 or 4.5.
3.5.
3.5. But yeah, like that _pod on socials. That's all from myself. Brooklyn, you got anything you want to say to the fans?
Broncos country, I'll be looking for you.
There we go. All right, like that _pod. We'll catch you next week.